Welcome to another edition of UC Lab Talks to You About Tech. Is that a good title, Fuad? Can we go with that now?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll get it right one day. I'll land on something I like and it'll be great. Anyways, you know who we are, or if you don't, Fuad Mia, Justin Hacker, founders of Uncanny Lab Limited. We're here to talk about Google Analytics 4 and the new era of intelligent analytics. A lot of exciting stuff is happening. But what we're finding more and more is that not everyone's quite ready to take advantage of that exciting stuff, are they, Fawad?
No, surprisingly, the adoption has not been as we expected, and I think there are reasons for that. But and there's time. I think still a little bit of time left.
Yeah, I mean, today I got an interesting notice on one of our Universal Analytics accounts, and it just said, if you haven't migrated, do it. So, I mean, if you're managing your own Universal Analytics, or if you have an agency managing it and you've logged in the last little while, you've seen that message and you know you have to do something. So, we're going to give you in this stream 5 questions you need to ask yourself or your agency. Make sure you're asking these questions if you're a business owner, manager, anyone in charge of, analytics, marketing, because they're important.
Yeah, and Justin, thanks for mentioning that. I think that little notification, the banner started showing up since last Sunday.
So
Yeah,
it's brand new.
yeah, and it's a good reminder. And yes, time is somewhat sensitive now.
It's that urgency finally building. Google's finally, making it so that you cannot keep your head in the sand any longer.
And I think, you know what? It's been a while. Google has some options to, out of the box, migrate. We'll go through that, but I think that's kind of rabbit hole. We'll talk about it.
We'll get into it. We'll go down that rabbit hole. But I mean, I guess the first question you got to ask yourself if you're a business owner or a marketing manager, have you even started preparing for the switch to GA4? Is there a plan? Is the tag installed on my website? And I've included a very easy way here to actually check. You can use Google Tag Assistant Legacy. It'll tell you if you have this fancy little G tag here. So it starts with a G dash instead of a UA dash. If you've got that, you're probably bare minimum set up, but the barest of minimums.
Now, a little context to that. Many of us, many companies started this years ago. Remember the beta version, the web and app. So if you don't have it, you have to race to get it now. Probably by the end of today. Put it in,
Yeah,
getting some data.
exactly. I mean, it's going to be a data hog, and it needs, I think, at least 6 months of data to be totally effective. But we don't even have 6 months anymore, do we, Fuad?
No, July 1st, right? When
Yeah.
Google Universal Analytics completely stops collecting data.
So, you'll be able to bank on the collected data, but you won't be able to learn anything new from it after that date. So, incredibly, incredibly important that you at least have this done and access to it, of course. Which, kind of leads us to our second question. Okay, I've had this set up. Did I just slap the tag on or did I put some thought into this? Have you reevaluated your measurement and content strategy?
A little bit of background here, Justin. The switch, the introduction of this brand new platform from Universal Analytics to GF4, there's a reason behind it, right? Which is the new emerging features and technologies like machine learning and AI. They require more contextual data. And the new framework of this data is that every event is, first of all, it's event based, and every event have lot of subdimensions that you can use to characterize it, and that gives immense a possibility of getting two reflections of what's happening by being able to define every action, every event more granularly. So that takes us to rethink how we want to measure the actions that happens on our website. You have
Hmm.
more capabilities of now defining a page view, defining a certain action on your app, and so forth. So it is time to revisit, rethink how you can take leverage of the new data structure of Analytics 4.
I think that's an interesting point too. Is that if anyone's familiar with the previous implementation of Google Analytics, and even if you aren't, this is interesting. It's not hit based anymore. It's all event based. What does that mean practically, Fuad?
Well, remember that cookie was a big part to our universal analytics. So all of the hit would be stored in your cookies, all the data. So in GA4, that's not the case anymore. And the fundamental difference is hit versus event. So event is through events, you'd be able to send the data to either your server or Google Analytics directly if you're using Google Tag Manager client side. Um, and and that's the fundamental difference. It's no longer hits, it's events.
What's nice about events is we can kind of describe the interaction more with a
Yeah.
little bit of extra data. So you can add different parameters and things to it to give you a little bit more context
And
on that event.
how many parameters do we have in the analytics for?
I want to say
For
2025.
you're maybe right.
Think it's around that.
Yeah,
Custom parameters, that is. There's a lot of default parameters you can add as well.
absolutely.
And I think this also is a great time to talk about consent management, something that a lot of sites that don't serve European audiences haven't really gotten to yet. Why is this becoming a big important thing?
Um, well, let's say you're a global company, and you have different compliances for different audiences based on their geographies and so forth. And as they have different consent requirements, users have different consent preferences. You have to capture those preferences and then, based on those preferences, deliver the experiences that they are requesting. And to do that at scale, um, you need a management that can automatically understand whose data needs to be collected, how, to what degree, and respect that as well. And, and for that, you need very advanced tools, and there are free tools available to do that. But when you get into more granular usage and more automatic subscription and desubscription from different lists and so forth, preference management, you'd probably look into a paid option. But
Mhm.
that is an important area to look into. How are you going to manage your consents of your customers? And the complexity also rise offline interactions as well, and preferences probably could also take changes during those interactions, and you have to convert all this contextual data into one place so that they are always up to date.
And I think that kind of brings us into the next point, which is why first party data is more important than it's ever been. First party data, for anyone not totally familiar, is something like an email, their name, something that you can use to join uh, their various sessions together in some meaning way, if it's offline to online, online to offline, et cetera, et cetera. Why is that becoming so important?
Well, for many reasons. One that we marketers should really consider is the gap of data. Again, goes back to a lot of these targeting abilities that we are losing. One that came out yesterday, I believe, which is our ability to combine targeting factors for content-based marketing, content targeting. So, for example, before we could target, for example, keywords and topics. Starting, I believe, March 1st, you would only be able to target one or the other. May 1st, if I'm right, you're also losing the abilities of similar audiences. So all these abilities of narrowing down of our targeting abilities, the data gap that we're experiencing only leaves us with only one option, which is enhancing our first party data, increasing the volume of first party data. And let's not be surprised, the results of first party based data driven marketing always yielded better performance. And that makes sense too, right? So now more than ever, because we're losing those abilities of smart granular combination based targeting, I think we have to start getting more and more, creating more communities around our brands so that we can engage with them first party.
I think that's an interesting point, and that's kind of why we tagged on. I mean, originally this question was, "Have you reevaluated your measurement strategy?" But it's really a content strategy question too. I mean, you need to make a meaningful reason for these users to give you this data, and users will sign up. They will divulge a little about themselves, but you have to make it meaningful in some way. They have to get a value there. So this is one thing that I think people are going to probably struggle with. I mean, for us, we have the traditional ways. I mean, we're still working on this strategy ourselves in many ways, but I mean, we've put our case studies behind, download screens. Tell us a little about yourself, and you can read our case study or our learning materials or things like that. That's great for us because we have educational materials on our website. But what does a plumber do to get this data is an interesting question. I mean, we're not going to answer that now, but I mean, this is things to think about. How am I going to get that first party data that I need to effectively run my campaigns? And
Yes.
yeah, and many times struggle with that answer because some sites are better for it and others are more difficult. But I think finding this key is probably going to involve better interactions, AI, and things like that, which we'll get into in further streams.
Well,
So let's, yeah,
it,
go ahead, Fuad.
it reinforces us to do real marketing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been like an autopilot. Oh, I got my similar audiences. Oh, yeah, everything's great. But yeah, you have to come up with intriguing, unique content and reasons.
Yep.
So, I guess question three everyone needs to ask themselves is: have you customized GA4 to make the best use of its new features? And there's a lot to unpack here because there's just so much. What would you say is the number one thing, Fuad?
Well, a lot of the common mistakes we have seen, one of the common mistakes we have seen is the out of the box 2 months data retention. Um, as
Which
soon
I
as
pictured above.
Yes, so that's the first thing. Um, I, depending on your business compliance, if you are allowed to retain data more than 2 months, please do so. That will enable great analysis. And this is where also comes the conversation of if you need to retain data more than 14 months for your analysis. We often do seasonal analysis going more than back 24 months and beyond. And that's where your BigQuery will come in. And I think Justin will talk about that too.
Yeah, we've got that in question four, the big reveal. So yeah, I mean, it's important to set up the data retention. Custom events, we kind of went over a little bit. I mean, the importance of it. By customizing the events, you get more data, more information about that event.
Now,
Um,
now Justin, Google Analytics 4 out of the box does have some enhanced events that it collects that it didn't in Universal Analytics. For example, from
mhm.
submissions, there are a few more. And there are,
Yeah, video playback, scrolling, basic scrolling.
yeah, and you do have the ability of turning on and off for those as well.
Yeah, it's neat, but there's still so much more you could do.
Mhm.
Especially if you're an e-commerce store. The enhanced e-commerce is more important than ever.
Yeah, we do have a slide for those, right?
I took that slide out at the last minute actually, Fawad, and worked it into this one. So if you want to go crazy on enhanced e-commerce, let's do it.
Oh, okay. So you can actually send user-defined data. So if user has first name, last name, the sensitive data could be actually hashed and sent to Google so that Google takes those as signals and match those. But as the data is going to Google, they're hashed, they're secret, and they're safe. And enhanced conversion is an example of that. If you add a little code on your website, and if you go to um, a particular place in Google Analytics 4 under tag configuration, I believe you'd be able to enable that settings. And that's a very powerful settings, especially in today's use case because of the lack of data. You want to you want to increase the qualitativeness of the data. I will be able to share that with you guys, with you all, exactly where to find that and what is the code you have to add.
So for now, why don't we give everybody some tips on setting up GA4? These are a little bit of freebies we put together. So let's just talk about what we're looking at in each of these slides, Fuad.
Yeah, so one of the important feature here is modeling. If you do not turn that on, then you will not leverage the predictive audiences that Google Analytics 4 offers out of the box. You do have to meet a threshold as well, combination of these two. And then when you create custom audiences, you'd be able to use machine learning driven, powered, out of the box propensity models that Analytics 4 offers. And that's a powerful, again, a flavor of AI within Google Analytics 4 that could help you optimize your remarketing campaigns in Google Ads.
Very cool.
And certain other things such as Google Signals and so forth, we suggest that you have them on. It Google Analytics 4 takes into consideration, based on your settings here, of course, multiple dimensions. Cookies haven't really completely disappeared, right? So that's there. So they do take consideration of that with all the other signals from Google's data, your website data, all combined together. They try to identify your user across all these devices to tie the sessions.
And we've actually got a few cookie hacks up our sleeves involving server side analytics, but we can save that for another day. But or not server side tag manager. Sorry.
That's right. And just the next slide, if you go to data retention, you'll see this almost same information as the last slide that we had in the back in terms of the uh, data policy and so forth. But you see some gears um, behind those blue backgrounds. And as you click those gears, you'd be able to access more granular data in the geographical regions in terms of where you want to turn on or off your collection. And this is where Google Analytics 4 complies with GDPR and region specific compliance that you can actually govern right from the UI. Previously, even 5 6 months ago, before this particular feature was on, it was a very resourceful work using Google Tag Manager, where you had to orchestrate how your analytics code was firing.
And
But
this
now,
will help you out if you don't have a specific policy for a country or just can't serve in that country.
yes, and there are a few places where you can do this for your signals, for your so if you go under data retention, and if you go one by one, you'd be able to see that you have lots of granular options in terms of your regions, what's collected where. And that's really powerful because now you don't have to invest so much to comply.
Very cool.
Another cool feature, Justin, previously in an agency environment, what we had problem with is that customers have ever-changing business needs and objectives that need to measure. And sometimes you need to change and modify the events. And for that, you had to go back to your tag manager specialist or right to the core of the code of the website. Now, without changing the code on the website, you could actually modify it in the interface. You could rename them. You can change the value.
Mm.
You can actually, change all the parameters right from the back end.
So when I spell sign up, sing up, you can fix that for me.
Absolutely, I don't have to reach out to Justin Hacker. Imagine I could do it right when I experience the issue from
Very
backend,
cool.
from the UI. So this is a great feature, and I think Google Analytics listened to all the marketers for years, right? This is a heavy, uh, heavy job creating a ticket for technical team.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and then it's the turnaround time as well. I mean, if you've got a 4-hour retainer with a company and you've used, I don't know, 3.8 of those. I mean, they're probably going to wait till the end of the month.
Absolutely, Justin. Yes. Yeah. And
What are we looking at here?
so here's something I personally also experienced in the beginning. Like, oh, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? In your configurations tag settings, there's a show all in order to get all of the other configuration settings available
Oh,
there.
wow. I didn't even know I had clicked that because I just have it all expanded.
Right. So this is an important thing to remember or look out in Google Analytics for in certain places that you may have more options. Look out for this show all. If you click show all here, we're going to show you what some options you get additionally here. And what is that one that I have highlighted here? Sorry, my screen is so small.
Allow user provided data capabilities.
Oh, I think this is where we talked about just in the enhanced conversion or the
Mm.
user sensitive data would be able. So whenever we collect user first name or user email address, now we can actually pass it to Google using a secret method, hashed method, and and this they use to actually further enhance the signals. Whether Justin Hacker was the person really who converted and so
Makes
forth,
sense.
or reducing duplication.
That's
Um,
very handy. And I see here you can also define your internal traffic, unwanted referrals, session timeouts. So that's pretty cool.
and internal traffic is an important one. If you're a large corporation, a lot of internal teams are using your website differently. Google Analytics 4 is still evolving in this area in terms of properly segmenting without polluting the data. But keep an eye for this. Settings are evolving. As it is now, you'd be able to easily identify your internal users. However, we had use cases where where we had to customize with different labels so that we can identify which team is where and how they're using it. But of course, there's this
It
probably
depends on it. I believe in that use case, the user wanted to actually measure what their internal team is doing as well, from a usability standpoint. So they wanted to. That's why we had to do the labeling. That might be a video of itself because it's a pretty interesting setup for that use
and
case. But I mean, the default is to just filter out all the internal traffic. But when you want to measure them, there's something else you got to do, which we can talk about.
right. This filters out completely entirely if you went out of the box system with simple way. But keep
Hmm.
in mind, if you wanted to measure your internal users as well, there are methods that workarounds, and as well new features are coming to for you to be able to do it out of the box. Oh, and I believe Justin, you didn't remove it, so here it is. Here's
Oh,
how you
okay.
can here's how you can enable that user-defined data, username, those sensitive data, and there's a little code that you have to drop in your website for this for hashing those data, and then you're done. You're enhanced.
Or tag manager or website. Yeah,
Right, right. Your tag manager would do it.
we love tag manager here. So
And Justin, this is what I was referring to. That lot of the times when we started consulting our customers in the recent months, we saw that they were very tempted to just input Universal Analytics into Google Analytics 4. It's great if you really have to do this as the last resort, but if you do this, then you're losing a lot of the capabilities, a lot of the
and you're adding a lot of pollution.
yes, and it's really, I mean, you're going a step back, right? Or you're staying in the dark age as the world is going to change with Analytics 4. But
So
remember,
don't select this option unless you absolutely have to.
right. Now remember, Justin, if you have certain use cases where you have third-party content experiences, and they don't
Mm.
support Analytics 4 yet, uh, in those cases, you can customize that only certain custom events would actually come to Google Analytics 4 as
Right, and
events.
I think we have that going on right now with one of our third party things. Is that Eventbrite?
You're right. Actually, two:
Yeah,
Eventbrite and Google Cloud itself. Google Cloud
of
does.
course.
They have some syndicated content that partners can serve from the website, and we want, as partners, we want to measure how those contents are engaged. Are influencing our customers' journey. But we can't do that without we can't measure that without actually combining Google Analytics 4 with Universal Analytics, figuring.
So if you're embarrassed by not having GA4, I mean, you're not the only ones. That's two big companies. One that was actually kind of surprising, uh, Google, that are still only using UA. So that's exactly what Fuad's talking about here. Is those very niche use cases where you want this on, but you have to configure it additionally, and it's aside from this,
Yep. So yeah, have fun.
have fun. Good luck. We can help you.
This goes back to our one of the slides that we showed above, Justin, where you had to turn on the modeling option in the account settings. You can do that, I think, in two places: in the data retention and in the account settings. I believe first you have to go through the account settings. When you create new audiences, you'd 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 see this your predictive audiences here, and most likely you will see that it's in red. The threshold hasn't been met, or you haven't probably turned on the modeling part. Um, I believe the threshold is at least 1,000 conversions or something like that.
Mhm.
It is also depending on where you are. It's a beta, so it may not be available to you. But yeah, do remember to turn on the modeling on, and do remember to have conversions in your analytics for setup.
Interestingly enough, if you aren't eligible for these, we actually have a course coming up in Ottawa. We're going to be doing one in Toronto and eventually Vancouver as well. That's going to teach you how to build your own models. So that's going to be interesting as well. The thresholds are a lot less, so I believe it's 10 in each.
I believe so.
But
And
you want hundreds for accuracy, of course. But you can get started with a much smaller number.
And Justin, we have to remember these are the out of the box models, and in our workshop, those are custom models, much more tuned to your data. And you
Hmm.
have a lot of ability to further tune it yourself. Where these ones, out of the box ones, they're always a black box. You
You'll
have
never know exactly what's happening.
Right, you have no contribution towards it. You won't be able to accelerate the outcomes of it.
So that leads us into another very important question. Have you even connected GA4 to Google BigQuery? And you've just seen a perfect reason why you want to do that. Well, I mean, there's a couple. Let's start with the easiest. You want more than 14 months data retention. This is your only ticket in town. You need to store it somewhere, and BigQuery has a great, link to GA4 and is very affordable for storage. I believe on the free tier you get something like a gigabyte of storage and a terabyte of querying for free. That is a lot because you're just storing text
Yeah.
values. I think we have 6 months of data available to us. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, we have 6 months available to us, and it's only something like 5 megabytes out of 1,000 that you're allowed.
So, Justin, it's fair to say that most of us will probably suffice with a free tier for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, even what we consider a mid-sized client is still in the free tier after a couple years, even.
From a storage perspective, that is right, and from query.
Storage and basic querying. So if you want to look up every user that bought a red car and you're a dealership, you can probably do that query for free. Uh,
And I think
whereas AI has a charge to it, but that's a whole.
And there's another reason to connect to BigQuery. I think we have experienced very, very fast the coder request in Looker Studio for visualizing data directly from Analytics 4 in Looker
Ah,
Studio.
yes, dashboarding has become extremely difficult.
Difficult. However, if you take it from Google Analytics 4 to BigQuery and BigQuery to Looker Studio, you'd be able to manage that much better, faster, and
And yes, back to the query thing. So this is going to use towards your query cap, but again, you're querying small amounts of data. So unless you're looking at that dashboard, 30 times a day, 31 days a month, 365 days a year, you're probably going to stay in that free tier. So, I mean, that is something that I've heard people are scared of. They're afraid of the charges in BigQuery, but you probably won't run into it unless you are an extremely massive organization with lots of traffic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's next?
Well, I was going to say there's one more reason you want to switch to BigQuery. It enables you to actually enhance that data through offline interactions, third-party sites and other enrichment data that you can actually merge into it. So, I mean, it's just a big SQL database, so you can start, joining things, and it enhances what our next question is going to be. You know, do you have a plan for predictive modeling or other AI-driven marketing?
Great
And
question.
without BigQuery, the answer is no, you don't.
Yeah, so BigQuery is becoming somewhat essential in the marketing mix now, especially in the analytics environment from the web.
Absolutely. And like we've seen these large companies who have been on board with it, for several years now. What they've managed to achieve, and I mean, Toyota is one I use for everyone because it's the most kind of shocking. Well, it's not shocking; they put the work in, but an 80% decrease in the cost per acquisition. That's huge.
That is huge.
And I mean, the 6%, the six times better re-engagement. I mean, so how are they getting this, Fuad? Like, what is the advantages of having a predictive model?
Um, I think the advantage is the ability of machines to compute at a scale that we can't. Um, and I think the concept of remarketing, let's think of it this way: the way we used to do before is we analysts we would analyze, hey, what sets of actions influence a macro conversion or a micro conversion that we're trying to get the user perform on the website. And these journey touch points that we design, we try to expose the next stage content and get them through that. So it's some sort of manual designing um, of which segments of users would be the most valuable for me to serve which ad. Now, now, what this predictive modeling is capable of doing is taking a much bigger number of dimensions and constantly reevaluate using the interactions those all your users doing on your website to evaluate who is the most likely user to perform the event that you are deciding that you would like them to perform,
Oh, yeah, let's say we're Toyota and we want them to configure a car.
right? Or drop by for a test drive or something.
Yeah.
As your users come to your website, the machine tries to predict, which user would be the most likely user to come to the dealership. And it tries to score every user based
Hmm.
on its activities and other dimensions that you'd be able to connect as you mature the model, such as user affinities, demographics, and all the other things.
Well, this
And
is where it's nice that you're able to, in BigQuery, merge in your dealership in-person data now with your website behavior data.
right, and your machine is sitting here and always analyzing and understanding and always learning from their outcomes that are happening as well, because your training is also continuous at a different time interval, of course. So so it can consider thousands of different dimensions, interactions, and all this data, and constantly reevaluate its learning to understand which user could be the user for the event uh, that you are choosing. And it's updating the lists, the audience lists in Google Analytics for you to be able to use it in Google Ads to tie it to a campaign.
And that's where you get your savings, right? Because now I know my top 100 users I need to spend money on. And then I have, various degrees of they're less likely at that stage So, it tells you who to spend on and where to spend and what your best results are going to be, which is, I guess, something that you used to use with experience and intuition and a little bit of guessing, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice because it's more real in a way. I mean, it's not done by a human, but they've looked at things that is not possible for you as an analyst to look at. I mean, you can go through reports and try to see similarities and things like this, but this is going through every single user,
Yep.
every single interaction to arrive at its conclusions.
I mean, let's look at a very typical remarketing strategy we used to do before. People who added items to the cart but never proceeded with checkout.
The cart abandonment question.
Right. Now, let's say I had 5,000 users at that stage, but are these 5,000 users, all of them, have the same probabilities of proceeding with checkout if I were to send them an email, all of them? Perhaps not. AI, that's where it really does so well because it can actually consider so many other factors and understand who
What
among
what yeah, what other users looked like this user and what was the outcome?
right. Yeah.
It's cool because I mean that's almost impossible for you to do. You can take a subsegment, a subsection, you can take samples, but this is plugging away at every single historical interaction. So, I mean, the accuracy is wild, and that's how companies like Toyota have gotten to where they've gotten, or L'Oreal, or Iberia. Um, and I mean, you can see it's different metrics they all measure out because the flexibility of it is cool because you configure the AI to work for whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Whatever your
Is it a
business.
better Yeah, is it a better ROI? Is it simply more awareness of something? Is it you want more forms filled out? You want a specific product to be bought more? It's the world is your oyster with this.
Yes.
And I think this kind of ties into what we're doing March 1st. I guess on January 24th, we had a group in, our first group for this predictive modeling session, this workshop. It was a great success. We've already got some who've gone through the entire process. And it is a process. I mean, even when we get you started, it's going to take months to roll it out. But I mean, the first step to anything is getting it configured, getting it working, getting familiar with how to use it. So March 1st, we're going to be taking another cohort through. You're going to learn everything about setting up BigQuery. You're going to learn everything about setting up your machine learning pipelines easily. You won't need a programmer with you. You won't need any kind of special knowledge other than your marketing knowledge that you're bringing with you. Or even if you're a business owner, you might learn a little bit about that too. I mean, this is not exclusively for um, very technical people, I would say. You just need to know what you want to achieve.
Yes.
So we'll post the links for that. So I mean, there's going to be a series of links down here. One is them to our event. If you can be in Ottawa March 1st, or if you are in Ottawa, highly recommend you join it. Um, Give us a message. We'd love to talk about what you're going to get out of it, and any flexibilities you might need. So give us a message. Give us a shout. We will definitely work with you on that. And if you have any questions about anything you've seen in this presentation, again, reach out, comment on the video. We're always here to help. And if you are a business owner specifically, I want to talk to the business owners for a second, or managers. If you have an agency managing your marketing analytics, make sure you ask these questions because these are 5 important questions that are going to make or break you in the next year. I think that's safe to say.
It is.
And
And it's
it
so great
still
to know.
shocks me. It still shocks me the amount of organizations that don't even have the tag installed, let alone have not started this thought process. So, um, again, make sure you're asking these questions, and if they have the not satisfactory answers, maybe it's time to start making some decisions.
Yeah, and the blame goes on us for businesses not having it already by now, because up until now we've only talked about the technical aspects of it. Um, I think
Yeah,
there
it's
should be
the
more
business
conversation with
why.
businesses.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. It's hard to reach out to that specific group because I find a lot of business owners get overwhelmed when we start talking analytics and the marketing, and that's why they have people managing it. Um, But I think it's actually bringing a lot of power back to the actual business owner and managers. Just the amount of things you can do on your own, even without a report, inside of GA4.
Absolutely. It's not a cost center, it's more like a cost saving center.
Yeah, like how can I make things more efficient, And I mean that's the point of the machine learning, is to make efficiencies or better returns or ease of access. I mean, Chat GPT is on fire because it made asking any question in your mind even easier than Google now, somehow. All
Absolutely.
right, everyone. I hope you found something out of this useful. Check out the links. We're going to post them in the comments. If it's YouTube, we'll post them in the description. And yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to us.
Thank you, everyone.